You're listening to Inside the Locker Room with Wimp and Barry Sanderson on Tide 100.9 in Tuscaloosa.
It's the Tide 95.3 The Bear and Tide 100.9 WTBC 1230. Roll Tide.
Inside the Locker Room with former Crimson Tide basketball coach Wimp Sanderson and his son, former SEC and ACC assistant basketball coach Barry Sanderson. It's time to take you inside the locker room on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
And good morning and welcome into a Monday edition of Inside the Locker Room. 205-342-9904 always is the number if you'd like to jump in on the show with us this morning. The good, bad, and the ugly of what you saw over the weekend. Download the Tide 100.9 app. You can get that app on your smartphone. You can send us an app message during the show. You also can listen to all the different shows that have coaches' radio show on Wednesday, obviously the games and stuff on the weekend. So download the app to your smartphone. You can take us with you anywhere you go. You want to email us? You can do that at wimpandbarry@yahoo.com. Before we get started, though, we want to thank Pressure Treated Pine from Great Southern. Guys, always remember, if it doesn't have the yellow tag on it, you don't want it. You want to build the 5-star backyard, the fence, the deck, the pergola, then Yellowwood is your choice. Go to yellowwood.com to find the dealer that is closest to you. Max Howell will join us at the bottom of the hour. We'll talk with Doug Bell. We'll look at Doug's picks. Dad had taken Army, and he took it on Thursday, which was good. The line was 16. So if you took it then you probably hit the Blue Plate Special hit chase. So that runs that record of 4-4. If you waited, that line did creep up a little bit to 17.5, and I think it ended up being maybe a 17-point game or whatever there. So the 16 did cover there for Army. So another victory in the book. So started out 1-4, has run that thing to 4-4. So we're going for the money this week, and I'm sure he's been looking at the games already. Good morning, Chase. Good morning, Dad. How you guys this morning?
Doing okay. Before I get into very briefly about the Tennessee game, I can explain that to you, what happened there. I'll just indicate 2 or 3 things to you. Coaches are getting fired. East Carolina and Southern Miss have fired their head coaches. Offensive coordinator at Oklahoma. Utah and Oklahoma have lost their jobs over all this mess. Liberty had won the WNBA, and Caitlin was first time to make all league as a rookie. Chiefs beat won again. They're undefeated. They give basketball who's better than who. There's only one person to do that. That's me. And I don't tell who's better than who. It's who helped our team win championships. That's the important thing, not who's better than who. In golf, Davis Riley won a bunch of money, $28,000. The Yankees and the Dodgers will play at Friday for the championship. Both of them very, very fine teams. Alabama's picked by far the number 1 team in basketball. The only interesting thing about that would be that Kentucky was picked 8th, which is way on down the line. So those are some of the things that happen. A lot of things that happen. I won't bore you with all that. Particularly, it doesn't really matter whether Oregon's number 1 right now. Particularly, we're still in going to week 9, I believe it is. What happens in the game on Saturday was they had 2 mediocre teams. You have to understand Alabama's lost a lot of players. You can get on there and criticize, get the ball all you want to. They've lost a lot of players to the transfer portal. They're not the same. I think even Nick Saban said that. They're not the same kind of team they have had. Tennessee's not as good as they have been. If you want to look at things that happened that hurt Alabama, penalties are costly. If you want to look at the coaching, then you need to. The only thing you need to look at is for the coaches behind the scenes to get these guys either not playing or straightened out with their penalties. I think that was a big thing there. Home field advantage Tennessee had by a long shot. I mentioned that the pressure to Milroe would affect him. Milroe against pressure at times with his short passes is not accurate. He throws an interception in the end zone. He's got Anderson wide open in the fourth quarter and can't get it to him because of the pressure that they put to him to some degree. The defense was not as bad. 21 points. Generally speaking, against the Tennessee team, you can eke that game out. So we can get on here and blast coaches if we will. Both teams played hard. Did they play well? Not at times. Neither team is as good as they have been. The defense, I thought, stayed with it and played fairly well. So we'll welcome your call. But that's exactly what happened. When Milroe gets pressured, he's a very fine quarterback. He is not a great, G-R-E-A-T, he's not a great short passer. He does not do that great. And the pressure sometimes gets to him more than other times, and it should, because that's the way things happen. Tennessee was okay, not great, but certainly when you go to Knoxville, you have a very hard time winning. So those are some of the things that happened. You have to understand the Alabama team is not as good as it has been. The Tennessee team is not either. The parity in the league will be interesting to see how many teams they put in the Pac-12 because of the parity. Everybody's pretty good. Nobody's really great. I will say this to you. Georgia goes in there. Georgia is ready to play, and the offensive coordinator did a terrific job. He had them ready to play, and that was a huge, huge win for Georgia to go in there. Kirby criticized the officials because the $250,000 fine that they got, that didn't mean anything during the game, throwing the cans on the field. But and also he jumped on ESPN for the way they acted prior to that, which I don't really know anything about that. But he did jump on the official and stayed with it. He coaches them well. They are very, very know what they want to do offensively, very good, and defensively. Do they always do it? Not sometimes they don't, but they generally know exactly what they want to do. That's all I got.
Yeah, Georgia, when you hear Kirby's interview, they went in there with the mindset that this was business. He said, we're not taking pictures on the field and all the hoopla. That doesn't mean anything. We came in here to eat, and they did. And that call that was overturned, at the end of the day, they got the call right. So the sequence that it went in, throwing the bottles, all that was wrong. But the main thing is they got it right. And sometimes these officials choke under pressure and they throw flags where they're not supposed to. So I didn't have a bigger problem with them changing the call because I thought it was the right call. As far as Alabama goes, I think you're right. It's two middle of the road SEC teams playing. I don't know what all the hoopla is about Tennessee's quarterback, but he's just another guy. He's not. If he was really, really, really good, Tennessee would have ran away with that game. The only thing I would ask is that at what point, and I'm not saying you bench Milroe during that game, but sometimes, and even Sarkisian did it backfired. Manning didn't do anything, but just for a spark, you put another guy in there just to see. It's a little bit different style. See what happens, much like Alabama did in the championship game when Tua threw the touchdown on the last play. Jalen Hurts just put it. They took him out and just see. I thought maybe they should have tried something just a different. Then you go back to Milroe, let him sit over there a possession or two, and then go back to the other guy. Go back to him if it's not successful. If he hits on something you like, then you stay with him. I think and then to me, I think Jeremy Bernard is their best receiver. I know Ryan Williams gets all the hoopla, but you cannot throw the ball to Ryan Williams every single play. It's like a high school where you have one great player and you just throw it to him in basketball. You give it to him, he shoots the ball every time. These guys are too good for that. You can't throw the ball to one player just about the entire game. Just your thoughts
you really
about
can't. You got to spread it out, and you got to do a good job. And I thought. And I'll get some criticism. I thought Greg McElroy did an excellent job calling the game. I thought he did an excellent job in not being one-sided. The throw over to the right side with an interception, he called that. If you go back to the left, it's going to be open, and they did. the biggest problem Alabama has as a quarterback is the quarterback has not played any. At least Peyton Manning had played a little. The quarterback at Alabama, the second-string quarterback, has not played much at all. But as I mentioned, getting to the quarterback was going to be a factor. And when they did, yes, sometimes you can run out of that pressure, and sometimes you can score. And early in the game, he did some pretty cute things. But as you go over that thing and you're beat up and they're playing you, and it's not really easy to run out of that pressure all the time. The pressure gets to you.
Yeah, and then when you throw the ball to one receiver, I think they said it was 18 or 19 times, then eventually those other guys stop running their routes. I mean, they say, I'm not going to run. Why am I going to sprint in this route? He's not going to throw it over here. He's going to throw it to this 17-year-old kid that everybody talks about all the time. And so you end up having problems within the locker room in those situations. Now, Bernard did end up with 5 catches. I think he's thank goodness they got him from Washington. So either they have mediocre receivers, and then their running game is atrocious. Jam Miller, 12 carries, 42 yards. Justice Haynes, who I thought was going to be really, really good, 8 carries, 22 yards, maybe the lines. Milroe, 14 carries. I don't know how many sacks he had. 11 yards there, so a total of 75 yards that in the running game. That's
you go Jalen, and you've got your running game can run your clock some and get you some first downs, I think, and they just didn't take advantage of that. And our had some calls about the league itself. Certainly, when you look at good wins, you look at South Carolina over Oklahoma. I know Oklahoma's not great, but South Carolina go in there and win. You look for Florida, the kid to keep his job, 48-20 over there. That's a good win for them. LSU, and maybe not a surprise at Arkansas. Florida scoring 48 points is a big win, the second-string quarterback. And we've already talked about A&M. A&M is a team that beats the teams they're supposed to beat. And when you beat the teams that you're supposed to beat, then that is a big plus for you. And we don't have a lot of great games this week. I would just say, of course, Missouri, Alabama is always important, but I would just say LSU at Texas A&M is probably the best game as far as standing is concerned, who's getting in, who's not, that we have this week.
Yeah, 2 undefeated teams there, 4-0, Texas A&M versus 3-0. I agree with you, LSU. It's not easy when you're Shane Beamer and you come to Alabama and you lose a game you should have won to get your team ready the next game to go to Oklahoma. They went in there and they were ready, and they stomped them in the first half. It's not easy if you're Billy Napier and everybody's talking about how bad you are to have your team still ready to play, and they scored 48. So, we kill these guys all the time, but let's give them some credit for having their teams ready to play, and they did. So I don't think the coaching was great up in Knoxville, but those teams right there were ready to go. 2 teams, I don't think Tennessee or Alabama played very well, to be quite honest with you. 2-minute truck. They're at 1330 Martin Road East. That's where you go pick up your boxes, your packing supplies, whatever you need to make this a smooth move. It's local, out of town, out of state, no problem. Let the professionals handle it. They'll take great care of you and your stuff. Give them a call today for the free estimate. It's 205-247-5050. That is 2 men in a truck, movers who care.
Here's what's trending on the Tuscaloosa thread.
Good Monday morning. The Northport City Council expected at tonight's meeting to hear a first reading of a resolution that would create the controversial University Beach Capital Improvement Cooperative District. Also part of the resolution is the appointment of the 3-member board of directors. That project on US 82 West has created considerable negative response from some in the city of Northport. Click TuscaloosaThread.com for more local news throughout the day. It's absolutely free. Don Hartley, Town Square Media, Tuscaloosa.
Tide 100.9 traffic.
Tuscaloosa traffic now from the Townsend Nissan Traffic Center. It is a purpose-driven ride on your freeways right now. We're looking at pretty wide open conditions in most spots. Now it is starting to volumize just a bit on Lurleen Wallace northbound at McFarland. That intersection always gets pretty busy. McFarland eastbound onto Lurleen Wallace, you got some stoplights.
Experience the wow factor. Contact Shoot Masonry and Specialties at 205-887-3807 today and unleash your home's full potential.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
The long dry spell continues this week. A sunny sky today, the high 81. Clear tonight with the low at 49. And for tomorrow and Wednesday, lots of sunshine both days. Afternoon highs between 80 and 83. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 43 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
Your home for Alabama Crimson Tide football. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Welcome back to Inside the Locker Room. Yellowwood pressure treated pine from Great Southern. If it doesn't have a yellow tag on it, you don't want it. Go to Yellowwood Hotline, get Tony in. Good morning, Tony.
Good morning. Hey, good morning, guys. Y'all doing all right?
Yes, sir. How are you, man?
I'm doing good. Hey, Coach, how's your wife? And Barry, how's your mother doing?
She's struggling some. She was operated on a week ago, yesterday, and
she
fall and a fall with her, and to have your shoulders and your leg, she has a rod in her leg, which at her age is not very good. I appreciate you asking, but it's a struggle for her. She's okay. The word's not okay. I really can't answer that. She's got a long rest of 21 days, probably in the nursing home.
Yeah. Thanks for asking.
Okay. Oh, no sweat, man. Well, guys, Barry, you made the comment about the rushing game. I don't know that it's awful. We just don't put a lot of stock in it. We don't have that many attempts. Guys, he attempted 27 passes in the first half alone. There are games that he didn't have 27 attempts. We don't put an emphasis on running the ball. When we did, we looked good coming out of the second half. Looked great. Drove it from the inside the 10 all the way up to the 50, and in my opinion, we should have went for it on 4th and 2, up 7-0. Defense playing well, and we don't put a lot of emphasis on running the ball. And I know people saying, well, Milroe may be hurt and all this. Well, if he's hurt, then at some point or another, if he's hurt that bad, he becomes a detriment. You got to pull him. And guys, there's no other way to say it. He played awful Saturday. He looked bad. When he sat in the pocket, no pressure, he's overthrowing receivers 7 or 8 yards on a curl, and that's something we hadn't seen him do. Just wasn't accurate with the football. Made decisions on passes that wasn't there. When you throw a fade in the end zone on second go, number one, I don't know if he checked to that call. I don't know if that call came from the sideline or not. But that's just a bad call. You run the ball down there, man. Get your running backs in, especially if you got a quarterback that they claim may have hurt his shoulder against South Carolina. Well, that's the case, then that's if he is hurt and the reports are true that he injured himself in South Carolina, that's bad coaching if you're going to get in there and throw it 27 times. I don't believe he's that hurt. I don't know. How could he be? If he's hurt and they know it and they're still calling that many pass plays, then there's a disconnect there somewhere. But guys, a big thing too, it's hard to run the ball, Barry, when it's 2nd and 15 or 1st and 20 because you get a holding penalty, you jump off sides, or you have too many men on the field. They're so undisciplined. And Martin Show made a good point this morning. It's a lot of the senior leadership that are making these mistakes, and ain't a lot of freshmen. So it's a lot of Saban leftover players, and they're just not disciplined. And again, we saw it at the end of the game. 4th and 7, it ends up being 4th and 22 because you have to show out. It just, I don't know if they've lost the team. I don't think they have, but there's definitely some things that if they don't get cleaned up, guys, I'm going to tell you, we're flirting with disaster. These guys running behind our secondary, eventually, this Cook kid coming up from Missouri, he's accurate. He's an accurate thrower. If they let those guys get behind that defensive back, we're going to find ourselves in a hole again. That game could have been a lot worse with a little bit more accurate. But, in my opinion, that quarterback hasn't been that accurate on deep balls all year.
Yeah, so he's just okay. Well, Tony, you coach football. if you throw the ball to the same guy every time, don't those other guys eventually just
absolutely
stop? I mean, they jog their routes after a while.
Absolutely, great point. It's an absolute fact. That's absolutely correct. And to me, y'all, I'm going to take flack for this, and that's okay. I do not think Jalen Milroe has gotten better at dumping down into the hot routes, seeing the underneath receivers in the middle of the field, and that's why he continues to go to number 2, because number 2 has bailed him out, and that's his safety valve. Hey, if I don't have to read the field, I'm going to get it out and get it to number 2 as quick as I can. Y'all, he had 20 targets. 20.
Yeah.
Well,
and yes,
early in the year with the long pass, that's what happens when you have that kind of success early. You fall back on that and go with that. And the intermediate pass is not there and not good.
And, you've seen other teams, a guy finally, and I don't know if they have any alpha dogs on this receiving core where they'll go to the quarterback and basically call him out and say, throw me the freaking ball, I'm open. Now, maybe these guys, maybe they're not open, but I would, if I were one of those receivers, I would be in his face saying, hey, you got to throw the ball somewhere else every once in a while. Now, Ryan Williams is a good player, but come on, we can't throw it to him every
Well, he's not a good player when you're getting bracketed and double teamed the whole time. There was a couple of times he threw into triple coverage. But guys, y'all watch Milroe's body language. That's disturbing to me too. He goes over there after he throws a pick. He goes and sits on the bench by himself. He's looking straight ahead or looking down at the ground. No one's around him. He's not talking to anybody. Something's going on there. His body language is awful. And I don't know. I know this as a coach. I'd be all up on him and tell him if you can't pick it up, if you're going to sit in here and feel sorry for yourself, we don't need you. We'll get somebody else. A lot of kids on that team can do that. But, you can't sit over there and pout. And you've got, at least get up and root for your defense. Try to get the ball, do something. But don't sit over there on the bench by yourself and pout. You got to get better.
Yeah. Good.
Well, y'all have a good rest of the week, man.
Thank you, Tony. All right, back to the Yellowwood Hotline. What's up, Philip?
Good morning, gentlemen. The game boiled down to the fourth quarter, which was just awful. Alabama had 3 plays to start off the fourth quarter, which is a continuation of a third quarter drive, and that was a +5 completion to Williams, a +2 completion to Law, and then they had a 7-yard completion to Bernard. I think that's right. No, I'll take that back. They had a 28-yard completion to Bernard. Haynes scored the touchdown on a 7-yard run, and then Miller had an 11-yard run. And then you get into the fourth. Alabama had a 3-and-out. They got the ball back, had a 3-and-out. They had a 4-and-out, and that fourth down call was the 13-yard completion to Haynes after the penalty on Law. And then they ended the game, of course, with the interception. So they had 4 possessions in the fourth quarter, which, ordinarily would be great. They had 11 plays in the fourth quarter that were true fourth quarter possessions for 18 yards. Justice Haynes had 5 of those 11 looks. He touched the ball 4 times. Law had a look. Milroe had 2 rushes for no yards, and Williams had 1 look for an incomplete pass. So Williams was targeted like crazy during the first 3 quarters, but in that fourth quarter, he only got 1 look.
The look was bad, though, because he was wide ass open, and he didn't get the ball to him.
Wide open.
And that everybody's killing Kendrick Law, and I get it. But the official, you can't stand there and watch the guy get up in his face and say all that, whatever he said to him, and then you got to call offsetting penalties on that one. I know he put his hands on him, but him getting up in his face and taunting him.
Second man always gets that on that situation.
But him getting, they're looking right at it, and the guy gets up in his face and taunts him. And then I just don't know, man. Your natural reaction is to get the guy off of you. So I thought they did miss that to be quite. I know Kendrick Law, everybody, hey, that's not the Alabama way. That's not the whatever. I mean, come on, the guy's up in your face. What would you do? You probably push him and get him off of you, wouldn't you, Phillip? Or I would.
Oh yeah. I just feel like those last 4 possessions, in the fourth quarter there, just summed the game up, and that lost the game right there. That the complete lack of production. They didn't go to Jerry Bernard, but one time they didn't go to him any in the fourth. He had that one completion for 7 yards in the third quarter, but then, it just was a terrible offensive line performance, jumping off sides, illegal, false starts. The offensive line was not cohesive, really, and I don't know if Milroe's hurt or not. Now, I think Milroe might have got hurt in the South Carolina game. That doesn't necessarily mean he's automatically hurt for this game, but something's wrong with him.
Yeah, something's not right. I agree. All right, Phillip, we got to get to Max. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
All right, we'll take this break and get to Max Howell. It's the Tide 100.9, 1230 AM WTBC. It's the home of Alabama sports.
Tide 100.9 traffic.
Tuscaloosa traffic now from the Townsend Nissan Traffic Center. It is a purpose-driven ride on your freeways right now. We're looking at pretty wide open conditions in most spots. Now it is starting to volumize just a bit on Lurleen Wallace northbound at McFarland. That intersection always gets pretty busy. McFarland eastbound onto Lurleen Wallace, you got some stoplight.
Or enjoy free shipping to your home on purchases over $25. Your new Academy Sports and Outdoor store is located at 4610 U.S. Highway 280 in Birmingham.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
The long dry spell continues this week. A sunny sky today, the high 81. Clear tonight with the low at 49. And for tomorrow and Wednesday, lots of sunshine both days. Afternoon highs between 80 and 83. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 43 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
Inside the Locker Room with Wimp and Barry on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Well, in North Carolina, way back in the hill, lived my old pappy and he had him a still. He brewed white lightning till the sun went down, and then you fill him a jug and he passes it
Back to
around.
Inside the Locker Room, Pressure Treated Pine from Great Southern. They bring you the 7 o'clock hour. If it doesn't have the yellow tag on it, you don't want it. Go right to the Yellowwood Hotline. He's former coach at Ole Miss, Florida State radio personality throughout the Southeast for years. Coach Max Howell. Good morning, Coach. How are you?
Max. Doing very well, guys. How y'all this morning?
We're okay.
Okay, go ahead, Ed.
Max, I think the biggest thing, I'm not getting into the coaching part of it, but I think the biggest thing for Alabama to try to correct is the penalties. The offensive line is a killer for them. Pass rush hurt them some, which the offensive line didn't do a good job there at times. So I think you can get on here and criticize Kalen and whoever you want to. The defense didn't give up. There's some home field advantage there, but I thought the offensive line, the penalties was a big factor.
Well, Coach, I think we can go and start most anywhere right now. Start looking at. I watched the ball game very closely, and I've looked at the offensive front really now for 2 years, and it certainly hadn't gotten any better. And I thought maybe they could make some adjustments and hopefully clear up some of the problems there, but that just hadn't happened. I think it goes deeper than that. I think maybe just total discipline on the field. It's the changeover first of all. From somebody like Coach Saban to the philosophy these guys that have now, right. That's just apparent. I don't go to practice. I don't see, but I watched the ball game and I watched the sidelines, and I've stayed on the sidelines 25 years. And a lot of it was at that level, and I'm frustrated, just as frustrated as any other Alabama fan has to be. But I just don't think they get the most out of their talent level right now. And don't ask me how to fix that. I don't know.
Well, there's 21 people left. I'm not sure I agree with you there. I don't know what the talent level is where it was before the transfer portal. Go ahead.
Well, other than Georgia, and I think we all thought Texas was going to be going to be right there with them too. But I think Georgia dispelled that theory Saturday as well. And I think a lot of it is preparation. You get them ready, and I'm not real sure. I saw some things that I had picked up before Alabama that they hadn't corrected yet, and maybe they can't. Maybe the timeline, the practice time on the field, maybe it's not quite organized enough. I don't know. I did not have an answer for it. I just know that the level of play by an Alabama team is not what it used to be. And I guess something jumped out I read this morning. When's the last time Alabama lost to Tennessee and Vanderbilt in the same year?
1984.
1984. I just picked up that date this morning. And that's something that's kind of a landmark at the Tennessee. And I heard Coach Saban say the other day that Alabama and Tennessee, the rivalry between those is just as big as it is, or bigger than it is at Auburn, with Alabama and Auburn. In particular in today's marketplace. So, we can sit here and hammer around what's wrong and how they going to fix it. I don't know until the coaching staff that's there makes up their mind that, they're going to have to change a few things. They're going to have to get more intense for practice sessions. I don't know any other way you can do it.
I just thought maybe during the game, sometimes guys lose their confidence, and it looked like, when he throws a pick early, you get worried because he loses confidence passing the football. That last interception he threw, there's 3 guys there. Not to bench him, but just to put Ty Simpson in just for a spark to see what he could do. A little bit different style quarterback. Sometimes you put a guy in there and he'll lead them right down the field. You just never know. Sometimes you just got to change the rhythm up of the team. Was that something they maybe should have, of course it's being Monday morning quarterback now, but is that something maybe they should have considered during the game? Just not bench him, but just for a spark, put a new guy in there.
Yeah, I don't see anything wrong with that. Not the way the overall team was moving and playing, but once coaches at that level, guys, and you guys have coached basketball at that level, you don't want to change a whole lot because it shakes up the whole team. If you just got one that's not quite performing, and he has performed before, it's hard to make that decision when to pull him. And when not, I saw some other ball games. The kid at Missouri, for example, with the Auburn game, they lost the Cook kid, went out into before the first quarter, and Auburn played well. They put Cook in with 3 minutes to go. He took them right down the field and won the ball game for them.
Yeah.
So, sometimes it can just be one person in just a few plays that can make a difference in the whole. It's the attitude situation, and today's kids are different too. I mean, that's the things that maybe none of us want to admit, but they are different kids coming out today. And maybe they're not as flexible as they used to be. But the fact is it's not getting done on the scoreboard. And the fan base, that's all they're looking at, tell you the truth. Hoping they can make a change.
What about Alabama's offensive linemen? They don't run the ball very well. These guys, Max, other than the center, they are so big.
I know.
I don't know that they can move. Like Texas, South Carolina was running right by those guys. I mean, big is okay, but if you're big and you have slow feet, these guys run by you. Is that a problem? Do you see that?
It's a major problem, and I don't want to get into names and all, but I watch. There's one or two I watched that was there last year. I watched them again this year. Again, I'm not telling them how to coach, but I have coached at that level and understand some of the techniques. And they aren't being taught with the foot movement. And you're right. When if you're going to run straight ahead on man blocking, that's great to have a 350-pounder. But if you got a pass rushing defensive end, and you got a tackle sitting in there that doesn't have good feet, he'll never get to him. How many sacks happened in the last 2 weeks because the tackle couldn't get out and get the defensive end? And they allow them to use their hands, but they don't allow them to push them down with their hands. And I'll say that they just not calling a lot of it. And it is a fact that they settled in on maybe straight man blocking where they block the guy in front of them straight ahead. They can run, but defensive coordinators are too smart for that. They're going to adjust their defensive front, walk up the linebacker. They're going to do a lot of things. They're going to stunt in the middle. If your feet aren't good enough to move that, then you have to either change positions or change personnel, one or the other. So that's where it all starts. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, that.
Well, you work with somebody to some degree with coach that you worked with there, Bobby. His demeanor is a little bit like Kalen DeBoer's, but he did get tough when he needed to get tough, I think.
Right.
You've indicated that, and probably, I think the biggest thing is to get the thing straightened out with the penalties, and to quit throwing the football. Quit throwing the football to the same guy every cotton picking time, because Barry's mentioned this, and as true as it can be, the rest of the guys quit running their routes. So the running game has got to start carrying the Alabama football team. It's not doing it.
Well, Coach, again, that starts up with the offensive front up front.
Oh, I know.
If you got a running game, you got to use it occasionally anyway. And I don't think they got, for some reason, and I've said this over and over, watching them, evidently that the six they start on the front line up there, that must be the best they got. Certainly they could make individual substitution. If you notice, they don't even substitute hardly on that front line. It's the same bunch starts off, particularly that inside five, start off every snap to do that. And I've not seen any changes up there, but you're right. A more balanced football team at least would run the clock. But the penalty thing, but guys, I went back and looked, it was the same thing up there 2 years ago when they lost. I mean, Alabama had 15 penalties in this ball game the other night, and I think they had like 16 or 17 then. And I'm not saying they call it closer up there, but for some reason, when they go to Knoxville, the officiating situation just didn't seem balanced at all. However, Tennessee got, they got their fair share as well, but they didn't look like, to me, it was critical in critical situations. And again, I'm not one to criticize officials. They got a game to do. They're going to call it like they see it. But it's certainly been a detriment. And again, I go back and look maybe at Alabama. How much practice during the practice session during the week do they actually emphasize that or lack of the penalty situation?
That's the point I'm making.
If they get the penalties, you got to practice on how to overcome that. And I don't know. I can't read enough about Alabama to say that because they got good athletes, that they are working hard enough during the week to overcome some of the mistakes.
Max, one of our listeners sent me a question, and I'm going to read it to you. But I think when you start losing, I think you throw all this out the window. You don't worry about this. But he's wanting to know, do you think athletic departments as a whole have lost their leverage and the ability to discipline student athletes because of the portal and the NIL? I think to a certain extent, maybe, but I think when you're not playing well, finally you say, I don't give a crap if they leave or not. I'm going to coach the way I coach. I think that's got to be where Alabama is at this point. But have they lost leverage in this situation?
Well, if they have, everybody else has too. Yeah. Everybody's got the same opportunity.
That's right.
So it goes back to the coaching staff. They hired Burns and them hired a coaching staff, a head guy. They knew what they were getting, and he has the opportunity to bring the coaches in he wanted to. And I'm not saying that's always a good thing. If they aren't performing, overall Alabama's still got they're winning. They just aren't winning at the rate that Coach Saban did. That's a comparison. That's just human nature. People are going to do that. But leverage, the leverage with the players, certainly I think the players have picked it up. They're getting paid right now. They're being recruited from one school to another, I'm sure, during the year, even though it's not public, but they're doing that. People are putting the word out that you got a chance to, if you don't like where you are, you come over here and play. It's a whole different ball game than we're all accustomed to seeing. So Alabama's got that's the center of conversation this morning. Alabama, like others, have got to define who they are, what they are. They got to go to work every day and try to correct some of the mistakes. And I hadn't seen the correction when it comes to throwing picks. But, Coach, I know you mentioned they're going to throw number two, about as often as they can.
I mean, since we've been on the radio, they've thrown the ball to him 5 times, Max.
I know that's a fact. And they do have some other wide receivers out there that can. But, you're gonna see doubling up because Alabama's lack of a running game now. You're gonna see a double coverage on him probably the rest of the season unless Alabama can create a running game. So the defensive coordinators in the Southeastern Conference are a pretty smart bunch, and they'll find those weaknesses regardless if you got better talent or not. There'll be some teams, i.e. Vanderbilt did it already. So there'll be some others out there before the season's over.
I hate fans that have never coached, Max. They this NIL and the portal. I think in the middle of the season, these guys don't give a flying crap about that. They're going to they'll deal with that at the end of the year. If they are, then they ain't winning anyway. I mean, you got to coach your guys, and you got to coach them the way you think they got to coach. And if you don't, then you're going to be sitting with the fans. And then at the end of the year, these guys will try to save who they want to save, and they'll let go who they want to let go, and they'll pay who needs to be paid a little bit more. But if they're worrying about that in the middle of the season, which I think fans put too much emphasis, they don't understand. Like these guys aren't doing that as much as the fans think. They're trying to win the games and coach their team. They're not babying these guys, are they? I hope not.
No, I don't think there's any doubt about that. But see, remember the fans, all they can talk about is what, in their comparison of what they know about. They don't know about what practice is like every day. They only evaluate what happens on Saturday. And obviously, some of the things that are happening on Saturday now, if you've been around the game a while, you can see there's not much transition over. If they are working on their weaknesses, I still see some of them on Saturday. When they show up. But the fan base that's based all on emotion. Yeah. It's all on one loss and how they put, how the basic performance. And we've seen some really poor performances end up winning ball games from time to time. But I think the drastic drop off in the way Alabama's performing is what the big, that's where the fan base is. They just aren't accustomed to seeing that at Alabama. And of course they had 17 years of year perfection in most cases. And so that's a hard adjustment. The fact is, or the reality is, Alabama's not playing well right now. They aren't playing consistent. And I think that's where a lot of the fans are really concerned.
Yeah.
When it gets down to the nitty-gritty, Auburn is not very good.
You're right.
Down with a quarterback out, and that didn't have anything to do with the offense, but they're fortunate enough to get a recovered fumble in the end zone for a touchdown and score another touchdown and get 17 points pretty quickly. But when it gets down to it and it's close, Auburn is not what you would call a nitty-gritty, tough defensive team to save the game. They're not very good on either end of the court field, really.
That's very true. And of course, Coach, that goes all back to recruiting and the kind of kids that you bring in. But it don't matter what you bring in, you got to coach them. You got to coach them up and make it. And there's some kind of gap in there. I don't know. If you watch Auburn close, they'll make 3 or 4 good plays. Then all of a sudden, in critical situations, they break down. And I think that's the history. Well, they got 2 wins this year, and maybe they could get 1 or 2 more, but it's going to be an uphill battle. And then what that one-loss record is going to do is how well you can recruit for the next year. Of course, you can try to sell. Hey, we're trying to get this particular kid because he can help us improve that one-loss record. But making it happen is a whole other story. But you're right. There's a gap in the communication somewhere, either between the head coach and the assistants, or the whole coaching staff and the team themselves. And I'm not one to see him make a decision on that because I'm never at practice. But the fact is, that's where games are won and lost. And if you aren't prepared, then you're not going to win very many.
Yeah, I think you got to give some coaches some credit. Give LSU's coaching staff credit going into Arkansas. I think you got to give Billy Napier credit. It's hard to hold a team like that together, Max, and everybody's telling them how bad they are. And I think you got to give Shane Beamer credit. You lose a tough game like that to Alabama, you go out to Oklahoma, and this team played great the first half. So there was some good coaching performances over the weekends. We always want to blast the coaches, but let's give these guys some credit. And, of course, Kirby Smart, they went in there with the mindset that they were coming in to play some ball, and they did.
They did. You're right. I thought Kirby his staff did a great job. Beaver did an excellent job this year, this week, coming off of losing the week before. And then LSU. I think LSU, Brian Kelly and that bunch down there, they almost had them buried. But if you notice in his pregame and in the post-game conferences I've seen with the coaches answering questions, that Kelly's upbeat. He said, they get better every week, and they are. And the confidence of that coaching staff, and you can, that transfers right over to the players. And those young kids can read that in a heartbeat. And I think you're absolutely right. I think the credit line needs to go to some of these guys that have not been favored before. That now the improvement we're mid-season, and the team's getting better. And I think that spells trouble for those teams that aren't getting better. Also, if you aren't making an improvement from the first game to the fifth or sixth, the guys, will get a whole lot better.
Yeah, Alabama's at 15 now. Of course, the fans keep talking about what they got. They don't need to worry about the playoff. The playoff's the least of their worries at this point. They got to worry about this practice so that they get tomorrow.
Yep.
And try to win a game. But everybody's looking at the playoff. And I'll mention it. I mean, if they won out at 15, they probably would eke in the playoff. But right now, the way they're playing, I don't know if that's even possible. But is this fixable this year, Max? But you and I aren't on the inside in the locker room. We don't know what's in these players' heads. I worry about the receivers. If they're going to throw the ball to number 2 every time, I'm going to stop running my routes eventually. So they got to kind of find out what's going on inside the locker room first and get all that corrected.
I absolutely agree, but you're right. With the tendencies that Alabama already has, that's going to be pretty easy to defend. Even if you ain't got really good talent, what you got to do, you're going to double up on number 2. You can put a spy on number 4, and keep him in the backfield. If you keep him in the backfield and double out on number 2, you're going to win the ball game most of the time under the conditions we've seen up to now. Alabama's got to make some changes in their philosophy as well, though. I think that's the general topic that's come out of this conversation. They got to move the ball around. I think they got to emphasize a running game. They got to do some reverse kind of stuff. There's several things, misdirections, and I don't see a lot of that right now. A lot of innovation, and maybe rightly so because of the talent level that was projected that Alabama had coming into the ball, into the season. Getting ready for practice every morning now, that's going to be a challenge for them. I really think, because the more you struggle like that and play hard and you lose, regardless of how many penalties or whatever you got, getting ready for the next week is going to be an uphill battle. It doesn't matter what about the quality of your players. Certainly, I think great players have an easier tendency to get better and have a change attitude. But right now, to me, it looks like Alabama's at a dead standstill. If they can't make improvement in their performance on Saturday, I don't see how it's going to get a whole lot better toward the end of the year.
All right, Max is cooling off. Hunting season, those men like to get together, and they always got Max whipping up something. You been cooking up anything for everybody?
Oh yeah, man, we did a big shrimp cook-off this past weekend. We had a guy brought in about 100 pounds of shrimp. I had about it was 8 couples there, and you talk about eating some shrimp. It's not peeled, guys. We boiled it and peeled it ourselves right out of the pot, and had corn and potatoes on the side with that. You talk about absolutely good. Had some coleslaw. People like a little slaw, cabbage slaw with that to make it kind of a little bit tangy, and of course dessert. We had 2 of the wives cooked they did a pineapple cheesecake. And I think about this. They mixed up the cheese batter and they put little chips of pineapple in that. And then when they laid it in, it was a 3-layer cake. They laid it in with whole pineapple in between. And that cheesecake, it was about as good as I've ever had. So shrimp and cheesecake is what we called it this past weekend. And we'll look forward to some. It'll be wild game, though, guys, next week.
Yeah, you didn't get Dad's attention with that cheesecake. He likes a little chocolate, Max. He likes that Mississippi mud.
Well, I do, too. I'm a big chocolate guy. I mean, the guys I cook with know that. But I thought this was as good a second choice as we've had is with the pineapple cheesecake.
Yeah, Dad likes those fruitcakes. Put it in. Max, we appreciate it, my man. People, the natives are getting restless over here in Tuscaloosa.
I can understand that. I certainly can.
Thank you, sir.
All right, guys.
Thank you.
We'll see you next week. Okay.
Buddy.
Bye-bye.
Bye. All right, we'll take the break here, and we'll come back. We'll open the phone lines 205-342-9904. This is the Tide 100.9, 1230 AM WTBC. It's the home of Alabama sports.
Weekday mornings at 6 a.m. The Martin Houston Show.
On the Martin Houston Show with Martin and Xavier, powered by Fox Eye Care. For a Tuesday edition of the program, we'll add DC Cap don't report to the conversation. We'll continue to break down Alabama's loss against Tennessee on the third Saturday in October. We'll also turn our attention to what Bama needs to right the ship as they take on Mizzou this Saturday. Can the Tide get it right? Can DeBoer get it right? Well, we'll talk about it and give you an opportunity to talk about it right here on your home for Alabama Sports Tide 101.9 at 12:30 a.m. WTBC. This is the Martin Houston Show, powered by Fox Eye Care.
Catch the Martin Houston Show from 6 to 7 weekday mornings on Tide 100.9.
Tide 100.9 traffic.
Tuscaloosa traffic now from the Townsend Nissan Traffic Center, and we're continuing. Same song, different verse, folks. We are looking good around the area for your marvelous Monday morning. Nothing more than the usual traffic delays or volume in the area. Not even really delays. So McFarland Boulevard, you're going to find that patchy but steady between Hunter Creek and Lurleen Wallace.
Or visit mezwins.com. I've got this.
No representations made that the quality of legal services to be performed is greater than the quality of legal services performed by other lawyers.
WTBC Tuscaloosa and W265CG Tuscaloosa, a Town Square media station. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
From the Fox Sports Studios in Los Angeles, here's Eddie Garcia.
In postseason baseball, Game 6 of the National League Championship Series saw the Dodgers close out the Mets with a 10-5 win. LA's Tommy Edman had a home run, drove in 4. He was named the NLCS MVP. And Will Smith homered and drove in a pair of runs as LA scored 8 or more runs in all 4 of their wins in the series, which they take 4-2 and advance to the World Series, where they'll face the New York Yankees starting on Friday. Check a games to note from Sunday's action, Week 7 in the NFL. Chiefs over the 49ers on the road, 28-18. Kansas City 6-0, the only remaining undefeated team left in the NFL, because the Vikings suffered their first loss, losing at home to the Lions 31-29. Both those teams are 5-1. Packers edge the Texans on a field goal as time expires, 24-22. Both teams are 5-2. Sunday night, it was the Steelers over the Jets 37-15. Pittsburgh's 5-2. Bills are 5-2 after topping the Titans 34-10. And the Commanders are 5-2. They crushed the Panthers 40-7.
Road tripping, business travel, or bringing your car in for repairs. All great reasons to rent a Toyota at Tuscaloosa Toyota. You can rent the latest Toyota models for a day, a week, or a weekend. Every Toyota rental car comes with 24 hours roadside assistance.
Free shipping, Dell Rewards, and expert support. When you get a Dell PC with AI, it gives back. Shop now at Dell.com/deals.
Inside the Locker Room with former Crimson Tide basketball coach Wimp Sanderson and his son, former SEC and ACC assistant basketball coach Barry Sanderson. It's time to take you inside the locker room on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Welcome back to the second hour of Inside the Locker Room. We thank Yellowwood, who brought you that 7 o'clock hour. If it doesn't have the yellow tag on it, you don't want it. As we transition to the 8 o'clock hour, I want to thank Andrew Kniffer. He's my Allstate insurance agent. Let him become yours. Out at 4705 McFarland Boulevard, Suite 3 over in Northport. Don't just pay your bill. Know exactly what you need and what you got insurance-wise. You can give him a call, 205-722-9201. You can look for home, life, auto, whatever you need. He will find the perfect solution for you. They also have a Facebook page, Andrew Kniffer, Allstate Insurance. Dad, I think you got to kind of let things work out. There's a couple of different scenarios. Like we talked about Kalen DeBoer and thought he handled everything here this summer very well about, retaining some of the players there, getting Ryan Williams to sign, all the different things there. And then they got into the season and The players seem to really be balled in, and they played great against Georgia in the first half and held on and won. And now they're struggling. And you always said you wait till the next guy comes in and replaces Nick Saban. It'll be difficult. Well, the difficult is here. Now, what you talked about when you're following a guy, because everybody compares everything that you're doing against what he did, and they do some things differently, and it was okay early, and now I guess this is probably what you were talking about when Coach did decide to walk away, the next guy would have it difficult. Now he's just got to weather the storm. I mean, he's not going to give up. It's just part of it, but just your thoughts kind of where it's at now. This is kind of what you envisioned eventually happening when you replace a guy like Coach Saban.
Well, I don't think there's any doubt about it. Your last interview just told you he didn't have any answers. That's for sure. I think when you go with different personalities, I went through that. Some guys come in that are tougher. Some guys come in, if you want to say, easier or different. In this particular case, somebody came in that was a little bit friendlier, more in a situation where you were a little bit weren't as concerned about what he said about you, or what he thought about you, enjoying life again, talking about the tough times. And I think you have to penalize. I'm not fussing anything at all about Caden's coaching. As far as the X and O's concerned, I think you can do better in some cases. But I'm thinking about the overall attitude of the team when things go bad. And you hit it on the head. We had a game where things went bad. Now, it went bad because the offensive line wasn't good. And you got, as the head coach, to get down there with the offensive line, your offensive line coaches, and you got to get it corrected. And as you talk about that the big guys have got slow feet, and by George, we get somebody in there that's got fast feet that's not as quick, but do something to you have to get them to understand that you are dissatisfied with their play. That this is not about general terms. We just didn't play good. We did, I'm dissatisfied behind the scenes. I'm dissatisfied with our play, and I'm dissatisfied with some of our players. And we're going to move in the direction I feel like we need to move. That's what I would say to my staff. And I would nail them, because they're with each group each day. I would nail them about that. We need to get the best guys playing that want to play and stop this penalty. That's what I would do. I would be over these damn officials, assistant coaches, to the point that we've got to get to moving. This ain't Washington. As far as what they do on the field, I'm not a football guy. I don't know that much about it, but I am a mental guy, and the mental is the physical. As I've said, is big. And you got to get them back mentally to make them good physically. Yeah,
I got a couple app messages here. Jeff from Haynesville. I don't know if this is true. If it is, just send it to him. He says, there's no discipline when an Alabama staffer walks in Tennessee Stadium with a cigar in his mouth before the game. He would have never done that under Saban. There's a video out of it. If you have the video, send it. You're right. But that's part of what you're talking about. Yeah, the mental part of walk around. And I don't think Coach Saban, I don't think he's meaning to do it, and I don't think it had anything to do with this game. And I know he coached at Alabama a long time, and when he's up there on the set, he talks about his experiences here. And when they talk about the games and talk about Alabama, I think he thinks he owes it to the people to be honest about it. But I don't think he does these staff any favors when he talks about that, well, Tennessee was his player's biggest rival, over Auburn. I don't know if he said it like that, but basically saying Tennessee was who they wanted to beat the most, not Auburn. So now you play Auburn, I guess Auburn will start using that stuff as bulletin board material. Now maybe that doesn't matter, but he is, and when he said that about Vanderbilt, that was the easiest place to play in the SEC. Then boom, you go. Well,
my staff needs to be concerned with me. When I got in there after the first year or so, and I'm not trying to compare me because I ain't no comparison, But I had a coach walk and said, we can't be this tough on them. And I said, by God, we're going to be to get them straight playing. Are they going to play? Or are they going to be? You can go too. I had a game where we went to the tournament in Kentucky and won by 2. Well, one of my GA staff members didn't go because he thought I was tough on them. And you got to make them knock on your door. You got to get them to play as best you can. You're talking about a guy walking in with a cigar in his mouth. Holy camole! I mean, you're exactly right. There ain't nobody.
That's what the
you're
guy
dead on
said.
that. But I don't care. Just that kind of attitude. We go, we got Tennessee. Tennessee, I'm gonna tell you, folks. Tennessee's got them a home field advantage when they play Alabama. I mean, the advantage is this. They're guys. They may not play well, but they play hard all the time because the crowd carries them on all the time. And I get my assistants. Well, my assistants get those players to play. And if you go and get beat with best talent, you might as well get beat with guys that are playing hard.
Yeah, and this is where things get all skewed up. Nothing's ever as good as it seems. Nothing ever is as bad as it seemed. When Milroe plays a great game against Georgia, Mel Kiper comes out and says, he's the number 1 pick. Like, bruh, let the season play out. Like, you don't you watch him play one great game and all of a sudden you vault him to the number 1 pick. Now, that's not Jalen Milroe's fault, but does he look like the number 1 pick? Like, let the season play out and then decide where you think these guys should be picked. But a guy that's running the draft like that to say the kids should be the number 1 pick after one good game to me is just silly. All right, get to
the guy with a cigar in his mouth. My buddy sent it to me. I got it.
Oh, you got it. So it's true.
Oh yeah, it's true. A big cigar in his mouth. He's waltzing in there like with a cigar in his mouth. He's real cute.
Yeah, he needs to swallow it.
He'd be real cute on somebody else's staff.
Yeah, that wouldn't fly. Yeah. All right, get to the Yellowwood hotline.
Hey, Coach, how y'all this morning?
We're okay.
All right.
We're okay.
Coach, you nailed this thing, and it's quite obvious to me what's going on, and we're not very good. And I think it was you, maybe Barry, said that it was 2 mediocre teams playing each other in Knoxville Saturday, and that is absolutely accurate. And I'll tell you something, Coach. You said something, and I told Philip and his and some of our compadres this weekend in Tech Talk. We lost a lot off this team, and it's evident to me now of what we've lost.
Yeah.
And you brought that up this morning with the transfer portal. We lost a lot of players, but I'm going to tell you something, and I told them this. The number 1 freaking thing we lost from last year's team is Nick Saban.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that right now. And anybody that discounts the loss of him and the effect it had on this team's lost their freaking mind. I'll tell you that right off the bat.
You're right.
And then you couple that with lack of talent and depth, talented depth, and it's had an effect on this team. And I don't, here's another thing, Coach. Y'all have brought this up, too, and it's obvious that Jalen Milroe cannot throw a middle-of-the-field short pass. He cannot do it. And Tony was right when he said, when he gets a little bit, he looks for one guy to bail him out. And it's a lack of understanding of this offense because if you go and look, there are people open besides Ryan, and I love Ryan. I love all these kids. But there's other people open in the middle of the field for a 3rd and 6. The tight end was standing all by himself because everybody on Tennessee's defense was convinced guess who was going to get the ball.
Yeah, that's right.
Tom, and I think you're right. But I hear other show hosts talk about Saban like the game.
Forget them. They don't know
like
nothing.
the game had passed him. Like he wasn't developing player.
God.
He would get the most out of you. If they were having problems, he would get it fixed. I can assure you that. And nobody.
True.
And so
and I'll tell you something. That the thing that was passing him by, and I'm not so sure he couldn't have figured it out if he had tried. But the thing that got him, I really think this is what hurt him, is when he could not convince good assistant coaches to come and work for him. When that happened to him, that is what set him back. And that showed last year, that offensive coordinator. I know Coach liked him, but, even Coach had to rescue him. And then after the season was over, he said, I had to spend more time on the defense than I've ever had to spend before. And then Kevin, what's his name? He hit the road running. And, it's just a lot of things going on. But you think about Jalen, and I think Jalen's a good kid and a good athlete, but he cannot throw the ball over the middle. I'll tell you a case in point on that. We had a big lead, and they put Ty in the ball game. This has been like 4 or 5 weeks ago. They put him in the ball game to let him run the offense. But Ty was hitting these little crossing routes across the middle, and guess who was the most excited to see that?
Milroe?
Coach DeBoer.
Well,
because
I just don't want it to be.
I'm telling you,
I don't want it to turn into
on that play.
I don't want it to turn in where you're starting to root for one quarterback over the other. They're both Alabama.
No,
you're not doing that. But that's what it's going to turn into. You're rooting for one. Yeah. So then, the pro Milroe guys, they want Simpson to get in there and fail, so they can say, "I told you he wasn't no good," instead of wanting what's best for Alabama. Yeah. We're just trying
the desire to be right.
That's exactly right there, Tom.
Yeah, I want to say this, too. At the University of Alabama, I don't care what happens the rest of the year, I would never change quarterbacks. You just can't do it. The publicity nightmare that it would create, you do not want to do that. The racial thing, the people that hate Alabama would come at them with both barrels blazing. Whether it was racial or not, that's what the card they would play. I would play Jalen. I would go with Jalen. I would stick with Jalen. I'd give him every opportunity to lead us out of it, whether he did it or didn't. I would give him the opportunity to do it. I love this kid. Don't get me wrong. And I would ride with him no matter what to the end of the year. And but at about game number 11, I'll be saying you need to find somewhere else to go.
Thank you, Tom.
Thanks, Tom.
See you, Tom.
All right, we'll get to break here, and we'll get Doug Bell in. We'll look at Doug's picks and find out what's going on with the PGA. You listen to Tide 100.9, 1230 AM WTBC. It's the home of Alabama sports.
Tide 100.9 traffic.
Tuscaloosa traffic now from the Townsend Nissan Traffic Center. We're picking up a bit more volume now for your rush to work, especially on 69 on the southbound lanes to McFarland. Now that's got a tight squeeze. It's going to take you back to just shy of Clear Lake Street and McFarland on the east and westbound lanes at the Lurleen Wallace and 69.
Free shipping to your home on purchases over $25. Your new Academy Sports and Outdoor store is located at 4610 U.S. Highway 280 in Birmingham.
From the University of Alabama, this is Crimson Tide Today. It's a daily update on Bama sports and it's brought to you by CB&S Bank. Bank anywhere, at any time, with CB&S Bank's digital solutions. Managing your finances has never been so easy. Hello again, everybody. I'm Roger Hoover. Here are thoughts from head coach Kalen DeBoer following Alabama's game Saturday at Tennessee.
Frustrating loss. We've had two now. And we just can't play team football, can't bring it together. One side of the ball has highlighted moments and the other side, stumbles and, some missed opportunities. And then, you try to look inward and after every game. And, we got to continue to do the same. I know we got a locker room that's hurting. I feel like it's, there's always, I guess, a common common feel in the locker room after a loss. But, these guys, I have no doubt in my mind that they poured everything into the preparation. Just frustrated we can't get over the hump.
I'll have more in a moment.
CB&S Bank has a long history of stability and a legacy of serving our community's needs for generations. You could say we know a thing or two about tradition. We've been family, community, and financially strong since we began in 1906. Being a team player is part of our culture. That's why at CB&S Bank, we're proud to sponsor the University of Alabama Athletics and prouder to take the field or court with you. Visit cbsbank.com today. Member FDIC and Equal Housing Lender.
Join us tonight for Crimson Tide Rewind, presented by the Alabama Department of Public Health, live at 6 p.m. Central from Baumhauer's Victory Grill in Vestavia Hills. Crimson Tide Today is brought to you by CB&S Bank. Crimson Tide Today is a production of the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
You're listening to Inside the Locker Room with Wimp and Barry, only on Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Welcome back to Inside the Locker Room. Tuscaloosa Toyota. Go to TuscaloosaToyota.com. Great special right now. Buy 3 tires. Get that 4th tire for $1. You're looking for the Toyota Tundra, 1.99 APR on that, $2,000 loyal cash. That's for 36 months to 1.99. The Tacoma, great deals on those. If you're looking for a great car, the Toyota Camry, 2025s are already in, so you can go out there and check out those at Tuscaloosa Toyota. Swing by Skyland Boulevard or go to the website TuscaloosaToyota.com. All right, we get to Tuscaloosa Toyota Hotline. He's with PGA Tour Radio, CBS Sports headquarters, also a handicapper here on Inside the Locker Room. We'll find out how he did on his picks here in just a few minutes. Doug Bell. Good morning, Doug. How are you?
Hey, Doug. Hey, Barry and Coach. Doing great. Another good golf tournament on the PGA Tour, although I don't think anybody watched it.
Yeah, Davis Riley won 28,000, I think.
Yeah, Davis Riley did well. Bud Cauley made another cut. He finished top 40. Wilson Furr made the cut. Those are the 3 Alabama guys. So, and JT Poston wins for the 3rd time in his career. He's a guy, not necessarily a household name, but a really good player on the PGA Tour. And now the tour goes to Japan, where they'll play the Zozo Championship. It's been United States the last few years ever since COVID, but now it's back in Japan. And then they'll take a week off, come back to Mexico, go to Bermuda, RSM Classic over to Sea Island. And then that's the last 4 tournaments for this fall. And then the PGA Tour will take a rest until 2025.
What about a lot of players going to Japan? Good players?
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do. The bigger names like Rory, for example, people like that, they're still playing, the DP World Tour, which is the European Tour. They're still having some big money events, and Rory's trying to win that money title, if you will. He's played it because some of the tournaments on the PGA Tour count towards the European Tour, championship deal. So yeah, some players go over, and what they do, Coach, these guys, if you agree to play in the Zozo, they will pay for your private plane over to Japan and back. So a lot of these guys are. Sure. You're enticed to go. Normally, it'd be like, wow, that'd be a long flight, an expensive flight. But in this case, they want more players to come over. Sure. And even with that caveat, a lot of players don't go because it is a long flight to Japan, and it kind of messes you up as far as coming back and maybe playing again in Mexico. But at the same time, I will say these guys that are playing in the fall. JT Poston didn't have to worry about it. He had a good year and made the playoffs and finished in the top 50. But a lot of these guys are trying to, establish themselves for the 2025 season. And we've seen Patton Kizzire, a Tuscaloosa guy. He won in the first tournament in the fall. So he's actually moved up in the 70s. I think at the last report he was like 78. So he has reestablished himself, gotten his car back, and will play in the signature events. So these are, even though not a lot of people are paying attention to it, these are big events for a lot of these PGA Tour guys. And you mentioned the Alabama guys, Davis Riley and Wilson Furr and Bud Cauley and Trey Mullinax is out there on a medical exemption. So a lot of these Alabama guys are trying to get their cards back for 2025.
When does that Rookie of the Year vote come out, Doug?
It'll come out after the last tournament of the year, and then they'll award the winners. At the first tournament there in Hawaii, and obviously Scotty Scheffler is going to be Player of the Year, and Nick Dunlap's going to be the PGA Tour Rookie of the Year. Which, by the way, a couple of years ago they renamed it the Arnold Palmer Award. So a lot of these, I'm telling you, it's funny. You throw Arnold Palmer's name out there, it's like, okay, another award with Arnie's name on it. But these players, I'm telling you, if you get an award with Arnold Palmer's name on it, and you're a professional golfer, it's something that they hold in high esteem, really, for the rest of their careers.
Anything else we need to know about the PGA Tour before we jump to football, Doug?
No. It's interesting, and I know Coach watches, as do I. And I'm out there working. I'm obviously not going to Japan, but nobody watches these tournaments in the fall. The ratings are almost non-existent, and yet these guys. The tour goes to these various stops. Las Vegas has been a long-time stop on the PGA Tour. So it's funny, with all the football going on, most people didn't even realize that the PGA Tour continues in the fall. But it is, and that's why a lot of people, Barry, feel, even though, as I said, it's a big deal for these guys trying to get their cards again, but that's why a lot of people feel that at the end of the year, the Tour Championship, the PGA Tour ought to just take a rest until 2025. But there's still a lot of money out there, a lot of cities, a lot of sponsors. So I guess for the foreseeable future, we'll still have fall tournaments, even though with football, going against football, it's just it's not a winning proposition for professional golf.
All right, Chase, let's flip over to Doug's picks. Let's see how he did. I actually looked at it, and I was wrong on my calculation. Let's see, Week 8, Doug currently 10-11. Heading into this week. Army takes on East Carolina. Now, Dad bet Army on Thursday, Doug, and he got 16. But when you betted, it was 17. So 45-28. My math tells me that is 7. So that is a push. Not a win, but not at all. She got your money back there, Doug. So, but Dad hit it because when he betted on Thursday, it was 16, and so he got. I thought you were looking good there for a while in East Carolina, but they did end up firing their coach yesterday. So.
Yeah, I saw that, and it was 24-0 at halftime.
Yeah.
When I saw the halftime, I was like, "This is going to be a cakewalk, right?"
Little
did I know East Carolina would score a little bit there in the second half.
Yeah,
but that's okay.
All right, so that's a push. So we got a tie for it now. Illinois versus Michigan. You said take Illinois plus the 1. They didn't even need it. Illinois knocks off Michigan 21-7. Victory for Doug. So ring it up, Chase. Yes, sir. So we're 11-11-1 currently. And then you said take Alabama minus the 2.5 versus Tennessee. And they were smoking cigars in Neyland Stadium, but it wasn't Alabama cigars. They were smoking some checkered cigars in there, so that would be a loss. Yeah. So we are now, gosh, I thought you were going to be 500.
I know.
11-12-1 is what you are now, Doug. So you got a chance to get over 500 this week with a 3-0. So where are you going this week, Doug?
Well, that Alabama game was certainly disappointing, and I thought I had that winner, and you guys gave me a hard time last week, but that's the way the season goes. And I'm reminded, Barry and Coach, of Bill Parcells, who said, "You are exactly who your record is.
You are what your record says you are." Yes.
Yes, and that's kind of what Alabama is right now. All right, here's where I'm going, and I hope you guys have kept up with Indiana.
They lost their quarterback.
Google me.
Well, did you see the backup quarterback? The backup quarterback was really good. They're the best story in college football, and they're 13th in the country, and really should be higher. They blew out Nebraska 56-7. Kurt Cignetti, it's interesting. He was on Coach Saban's staff for 3 years, 2007 to 2010. Wide receivers coach, comes from an offensive background. His family, recruiting coordinator, obviously knows how to get players. and then leaves Alabama just to be a head coach at a Division II school, the IUP Crimson Hawks. Never heard of them. Went to Elon, went to James Madison, and got them into the top 25. Indiana hires him at the end of the regular season, so he has all the offseason. He goes out and gets all these transfer kids, Curt Cignetti. I mean, they're really good guys, and they're 6.5-point favorite over Washington at home. I think I'm not going to say it. I was going to say it, but you know what I was thinking? This is a really, really good bet. Indiana at home. I wasn't going to use the LOCK word. I know, Barry, you told me not to use that.
Yeah, don't do that.
But Indiana, given 6.5, I like that pick to start things off.
Yeah, the line says 7 to me, but I'm going to go ahead and give you your 6.5.
That's a good pick. That's a real good pick.
You need the help, so I'm going to give you the 6.5. All right. I got a buddy that thinks Cignetti thinks Alabama should hire him. Every day I get a new thing about him and talking to his team, and the guy is pretty cool to listen to. He's very confident in himself. They asked if he win. What did he say, Doug? Google me. That's all he said.
Yes.
He said, Google me.
I mean, listen. He has. The proof's in the pudding, right? And if things work out, if time works out, who knows? Maybe Curt Cignetti will someday in the near future find his way back to Tuscaloosa. Who knows?
Yeah, we'll see. All right, that's one game.
All right, and here's the other game I really like, guys. BYU, Friday night, they somehow rallied in the final minute to beat Oklahoma State. It was a crazy game.
Barry almost had me taking.
Yeah, I almost messed that up there. I told him to take BYU.
I liked them too, but it was so good. It was too good to be true, I thought.
Yeah, big spread. It was a big spread too. Big number. It's just they're favored by 1.5 at Central Florida. Central Florida struggled now. You know, they were at the beginning of the year picked to be one of the better teams in this newly configured Big 12, but BYU 7-0, 5-0 in the Big 12, guys. Again, BYU is just they're kind of like Indiana. They're a really, really good story in this college football season, and I'm not so sure Central Florida, gosh, they have really struggled, and they give up so much yardage on the ground. I mean, you can run all day on Gus Malzahn's team. I like BYU covering that spread, staying undefeated in Orlando.
What's the spread on that one?
1.5. So you got BYU minus 1.5. That's
I watch BYU now on the road. Sometimes they pull their puddings on the road.
Well, yeah, this year they're 7-0. So
yeah. So I mean, right now it looks like I'm over the 500 mark.
That's a trap. Right now. Doug, I like the pick, but that 1.5, that's a trap bet there for some reason. I don't know. I just don't know. Go ahead.
All right. And how about, and there were some other games, you know, Illinois getting 21.5 at Oregon, but I stayed away from it. I was leaning in that direction, but here's the one I like. Texas is at Vanderbilt, guys. Vanderbilt now, by the way, 25th in the country. We know all about Vandy. We saw them in action a few weeks ago. They're getting 18.5, at least that's what I have, at home against the Texas Longhorns. I think Vandy keeps this close, relatively close, inside that 18.5 number. So
where are you getting? I see 17.5 on ESPN. Where are you getting these numbers from this morning, Doug?
Apparently a lot of people are putting money.
So who are you taking? Who are you taking in this game?
I'm taking Vandy. So. And Vandy, by the way, guys, if you bet on them this year, they're 5-2 against the spread. BYU, Indiana are 6-1 against the spread. So if you bet on BYU and Indiana all year, you'd be way ahead of the game.
Yeah,
if. Well, I know. I mean, I'm with you. Because remember the experiment at the beginning of the year, I told you guys, let's go Bama, Georgia, Ohio State. Pick them every week. Let's see where we go. Right now, Alabama 3-4, Georgia 2-5, Ohio State 3-3. We'd be 8-12 on the season if we bet on the three big hosses. Yeah. And just an experiment. I'm glad we didn't go that route.
The local bookies are making a killing when Alabama doesn't cover. You know that, right? Everybody bets Alabama.
Oh my goodness! And that's why I stayed away from that. That's a big spread this Saturday, by the way. Alabama, Missouri. So that's a big one. And in fact, it's higher than I was a little surprised by that number. Alabama, Missouri on Saturday.
Yeah, currently 13.5. That Vanderbilt line is 17.5. You want us to do 17.5 or 18.5?
Well, since I'm a regular on the show, let's go 18.5.
We'll give you a point. You need it. That'll be your pay for being on the show.
Yeah, you said the proof was in the. You said the proof was in the pudding, and I see your pudding. You're still getting big.
No, we've been right on the cusp of being on the winning
Doug,
side.
at
Right?
11, 12, and 1, you're having an enormous year for you. You're having a great year.
You're gonna ruin this show if you get a winner.
Because last year you couldn't see the winning record with binoculars. You were so far from it. So
It was a bad season. Yeah,
it was bad, very bad.
But I will say, remember I was very positive. You got to stay
Are
positive.
you going on any of these golf trips that they're going to have coming up, Mexico or anything?
I'm going. My last 2 stops will be Bermuda, and then I'm going to Sea Island, the last tournament of the 2024 year. And then I'd like to go, guys. I really would like to go to the Hero World Challenge down in the Bahamas. That's Tiger's tournament. He only invites 28 guys.
Well, take her and
that'll
go
be
down there. Yeah.
Well, that'll be the first time that Tiger has played in quite some time. So, and he's going to go back-to-back weeks. By the way, getting back to golf quickly, he will play in his own tournament, the Hero World Challenge in the Bahamas. And then he'll the next week he'll play in the Father-Son Challenge with Charlie as that goes up to Florida. So again, we never see the great Tiger Woods anymore.
Tiger needs to retire. He needs to retire.
Well, we'll see.
I love him, but I hate it. But he needs to retire.
Yeah, but it's always fun when he plays with Charlie, his son. But anyway, Indiana, BYU, Vandy. I see 3-0 in my future, guys. I really do. I mean, I'm just looking in the crystal ball, and it just keeps coming out 3-0.
Yeah,
you jumped around almost 3.
You just ruined Indiana's season.
No.
Think of BYU, Barry. They've been undefeated.
Yeah. And Vanderbilt. Listen, Vanderbilt. I just can't see Vanderbilt getting blown out.
No,
because
they beat Alabama.
And I think Texas, that was a physical beating they took against Georgia. And so I don't know. We'll see if they can bounce back. And I just like Vanderbilt. I really do. I think that's a good football team. And they're going to wind up they're going to have their best season in quite some time.
They go into a bowl?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, but what do the bowls mean, guys? I mean, if for example, if Alabama doesn't...
It means that players don't play because they want to get paid more money.
Well, I mean, if Alabama doesn't go to the playoffs, and they're not out of it yet, they got to beat Missouri, got to beat LSU, and then see how things shake out. But if they don't go to the 12-team playoff, I mean, is the bowl game will be of any interest whatsoever?
Birmingham Bowl.
Well, I don't know. I know in talking to friends of mine, like out at the Sun Bowl, and they think the Sun Bowl, which has been a long-standing tradition for a long time, Bernie Avalos is the bowl director out there, and he thinks that bowl will go away in the next 2 or 3 years.
Yeah,
because there will be no interest whatsoever.
The basketball tournament.
So. Yeah, exactly. So I mean, I don't know. I think we're seeing obviously things are changing quickly in the world of collegiate sports, but I think bowl games, which have been a staple obviously for gamblers, and it's just one of those things we've had for forever. But I do think the postseason bowl games now will start to evaporate and eventually go away as this playoff unfolds. Nobody's going to care about the bowl games, are they? No. I mean, so it takes you back. If Alabama doesn't make the 12-team playoffs, let's say they go to the Sugar Bowl. Would that be a big deal anymore?
No. Nobody's going.
So,
they could go to the Birmingham Bowl.
Well, yeah, the Birmingham Bowl would be glad to have them.
If Alabama does not get in the final 12, they will have a hard time selling tickets for any bowl game. I don't care where it is, though.
That's right.
Yeah, no, I agree. And listen, I still believe, guys, as this breaks down, I think the Big Ten is going to have 4 teams in. I think that's an absolute lock, even though Indiana now has kind of crashed the party. But when you look at the 4, I mean, they're certainly deserving. And I think the Southeastern Conference is going to get 4. I think that's a lock. And I think Georgia's already there. So now you have 6 schools, Texas A&M, Tennessee, Texas, Mizzou, LSU, and Alabama, battling for 3.
Well,
so
you got 2 coming in from Clemson and Miami that are locks in the ACC. And you know the Big 12's going to have 2. You got too many teams.
Well, no, the Big 12 is going to have 1.
Oh,
the Big 12 will have 1. And then we're going to have to see how it shakes out with Notre Dame, because I think Notre Dame, they're going to play Army and Navy.
Yeah, their schedule's so easy.
But they're going to get in, don't you think, if they go 11-1?
Yeah, they're getting in.
Even though their loss was to Northern Illinois. Northern Illinois lost.
They're still
they're still getting in. So, and I think, so if you take Clemson and Miami, then that leaves you the Big 12 champion, that leaves you Notre Dame, and that's still 4-4, right?
Yeah. I don't know. All right, Doug, tell them about MD Wellness and Aesthetics.
Oh, it's good stuff. Good stuff. MD Wellness and Aesthetics, 650 Inverness Corners. You can look it up, guys, mdwellnessandaesthetics.com, and it's 205-582-9216. And Susan Brignett will answer the phone today. She's there at 9 o'clock. It's a free consultation, and it's all the stuff that the skin care, the hair care, the weight loss, the laser treatments, the Botox, the facials, the skin peels, all that stuff. And I always tell you guys, and I tell everybody, it's not just for the ladies, because when I go in there, there's a lot of guys in there too. So check it out. Turn back the clock, mdwellnessandaesthetics.com.
Thank you, Doug.
Thanks, Doug.
Next week. See ya.
All right, Dad, tell them about Bryant Bank. And then, Chase, take us to break. And then I'm going to get in the car and call you because I got to head to a media thing, but I'll do the last few minutes on the phone. Bryant Bank, Dad.
Well, the Bryant Bank, located all throughout the state of Alabama, actually down in Gulf Shores. Birmingham's got a lot of branches. One right below me here on 280, and another one down the road on 280, and all the ones in Tuscaloosa. To our listening audience, if you need to go to a bank that's going to take care of you, that's going to be darn sure that your money is safe, that's going to be friendly to you, that you're going to feel comfortable with them, whether you want to borrow money or put money in for a business and a personal accounts, both, then Bryant Bank's the place to go. I can say that because I've been with them for a long time. I've dealt with them over several things here in Birmingham, and they'll do the same thing for you in Tuscaloosa. 4 good locations there. So many of our listeners around have an opportunity to go to Bryant Bank, and I wish you would, and tell them you heard on Inside the Locker Room, and I think that you'll be well pleased. So give them a try. Tell them you heard it on our show, and I think that you'll be safely banking the way you want to. That's it.
Tide 100.9 traffic.
Tuscaloosa traffic now from the Townsend Nissan Traffic Center. 69 recovering from an earlier crash on the northbound lanes of 69 just before May-Henton Boulevard. Now it looks like everything has pretty much been cleared to the left shoulder. And so now those residual backups, well, actually you don't have any to worry about.
Remember M for money and Mesrano.
If it has a logo on it, call me. 205-800-8000.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
The long dry spell continues this week. A sunny sky today, the high 81. Clear tonight with the low at 49. And for tomorrow and Wednesday, lots of sunshine both days. Afternoon highs between 80 and 83. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 44 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
For more from Tide 100.9,
Let's it fly! And there's it! Whoa!
Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and SoundCloud.
So welcome back to Inside the Locker Room. We want to thank Yellowwood Pressure Treated Pine from Great Southern. If it doesn't have the yellow tag on it, then you don't want it. All right, this staff, Coach DeBoer, has a different format than most. They practiced yesterday. I particularly don't like that format just because you're so worn out after getting back from a game. You know, you need to let that kind of sink in where they can dig into the film, and so they'll take the day off and then they get back going on Tuesday. So I'm not a huge fan of that, but I know it's worked for him. But you talked about getting on your assistant coaches, would you open up some battles there and say, because you have to have physical practices and say, hey, nobody's position is solid right now. Maybe we're not playing the best player. Let's open up the competition. How do you do that at the same time not beating your guys up?
Well, first of all, you got to get your injury list. You don't want the injured to get more injured over trying to do something physical. Then you've got to take a look at those guys who maybe did not play as much as the first teamers a little bit in practice to see if they are saying to themselves when they leave practice, I got a shot to play. Missouri is a bad damn good team. And you better be ready to play. Missouri will be pretty good defensively, and their quarterback is not bad. He's not great. He's not talked about a lot, but he has the ability to hurt you a great deal. He got hurt in the first part of that game with Auburn. They went south pretty bad. It looked like it was going to be a win for them, but they came back. He came back and won. So I would say that you really emphasize in your staff meetings to be darn sure that your assistant coaches. Coach doesn't go down to the defensive end at all. He pretty much stays up at the offensive side. That you make darn sure your defensive coaches, your offensive line coaches, your people up front on both sides of the ball do the thing. Your coaches do the things that make your team more effective, and that is either by feeling like you're changing personnel or, just trying to get a little bit tougher with them at certain points in practice, and this stuff about being laid back, walking into Tennessee with a cigar, but that kind of stuff. You got to get these guys, these coaches that work for you, and the things that they do is a great reflection on yourself as the head coach. They've got to get these guys to playing better and to think they can win. Now, the quarterback situation, Barry, is I don't know whether Jalen's hurt, whether he's just not effective, whether offensive line, you won't blame them all the time. You can blame whoever you wish. But he's got to look at all his receivers, and I think this receiving core needs to understand your coaches need to understand we don't throw to anybody that's open. I also think that your defensive people back there in the back, they'd rather be darn sure that they do a better job with pass defense. This guy is a no-name good passer for Missouri, and that they can hurt you. So those are things I think that you got to do.
All right, we'll take this last break, and then we'll wrap up the show. This is Tide 100.9, 1230 AM, WTBC. Is the home of Alabama sports.
Weekday mornings at 6 a.m., The Martin Houston Show.
On the Martin Houston Show with Martin and Xavier, powered by Fox Eye Care. For a Tuesday edition of the program, we'll add DC Cap don't report to the conversation. We'll continue to break down Alabama's loss against Tennessee on the third Saturday in October. We'll also turn our attention to what Bama needs to right the ship as they take on Mizzou this Saturday. Can the Tide get it right? Can DeBoer get it right? Well, we'll talk about it and give you an opportunity to talk about it right here on your home for Alabama Sports 101.9 and 12:30 a.m. WTBC. This is the Martin Houston Show, powered by Fox Eye Care.
Catch the Martin Houston Show from 6 to 7 weekday mornings on Tide 100.9.
Tide 100.9 traffic.
Tuscaloosa traffic now from the Townsend Nissan Traffic Center. 69 recovering from an earlier crash on the northbound lanes of 69 just before May-Henton Boulevard. Now it looks like everything has pretty much been cleared to the left shoulder. And so now those residual backups, well, actually you don't have any to worry.
Talented candidates to find it, which makes it easier for you to hire them. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
The long dry spell continues this week. A sunny sky today, the high 81. Clear tonight with the low at 49. And for tomorrow and Wednesday, lots of sunshine both days. Afternoon highs between 80 and 83. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 44 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
Two-time state champion and two-time NIT champion, Barry Sanderson breaks down the latest in sports on Inside the Locker Room on Tide 100.9.
Welcome back to Inside the Locker Room. All right, well, that'll do it for today's show. Tomorrow we'll have Kevin Skarbinski will join us. Also, the two coordinators and Coach DeBoer will have a press conference today, so we'll see what those guys have to say about the past game and then what's upcoming with Missouri. I think maybe there's a still opportunity to maybe still reach all your goals. I'm not sure about getting to Atlanta. That may be over, but it's a possibility to get to the playoff. Now, if they lose that next game, then I think all that's out the window. But they can't worry about that. They got to worry about having a great practice tomorrow, getting ready for homecoming this Saturday. We'll be back tomorrow a.m. You're listening to Tide 100.9 and 12:30 a.m. WTBC. It's the home of Alabama sports. Have a great day, everybody.